Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. One more time, we're going to get into the Emergencies Act here. We'll get into Justice Rouleau's recommendations. The thing you're going to notice most about his recommendations is that he has a lot of recommendations about the POEC itself and how it's run, how there's basically no rules for it, and no stipulations besides, I suppose, misconduct. I think I'm going to find out if I can read the rules on this thing, because just adds up to basically kangaroo, witnessing. That's it. So we're going to start here on page 259. And pull it up. I'm going to start with recommendation 20. Now, the federal government, working together with other affected governments, should develop an expedited accreditation process for RCMP or interprovincial officers to exercise legal authority to enforce provincial legislation or municipal bylaws where applicable. And it asks for more training, education to make sure they're competent. Now, we all know the RCMP is far from competent, and this just nails the, it puts the nail in the coffin of Brenda Lucki right there, because, I mean, they are not competent. It shows, and asking for more legal authority over provinces and municipalities if something like this happens again. Well, I'll tell you, the likelihood of this trucker convoy ever happening again is pretty much zero. So all these recommendations are meaningless, really. And by putting the RCMP in charge, it's going to cause all kinds of problems with jurisdictional strife amongst the cops at great cost to the taxpayer. So that's a bad thing right there. Now, I skipped to 20 because I wanted to get that one in there, but we're going to go back. They should only be consulting the police, not instructing them, and that it also should be in writing. Anything that they suggest or anything, if they're going to come close to calling another Emergencies Act, which you never know what the heck they're going to do now, but I'll tell you the next time. It ain't going to be so fun. So I'm going to get into the fact that he's mostly complaining about the commission and not trying to give recommendations to the government or protesters or anything like that. So it's about police. Recommendation 4, police. Just making more work for them. Recommendation 5, government should consider incorporating the points in recommendation 4, police. Mandating the creation of board policies. The Ontario Solicitor General should consider formalizing responsibilities of police services. He's more than likely mad at Ontario because Doug Ford didn't show up. And the OPP were totally confused because that's their job. Their job was to get in there. It was an OPP thing. And in fact, the Ottawa City Council poking their nose in, and Ottawa police were poking their nose in, and they just went right over the OPP because Doug Ford didn't show up, right to Justin Trudeau, and that's basically what all these recommendations are. Don't skip a step there. So he's complaining about the province. More about the legal rights of the provinces and municipalities and stuff like that. There should always be pre-event planning and ongoing dialogue with protesters by trained and, where applicable, culturally competent officers, and coordination with non-policing first responders and relevant public authorities or agencies. So what he's saying is the mayor should have talked to the people, to the convoy organizers. And he's got more recommendations for the RCMP, more work for them. You know, it's just endless work. Police. You know, saying that if the police did their job, then, you know, things wouldn't happen. Well, we all know that's baloney. Number 25 is a good one. And that's where I was talking about the Fed should be consulting the RCMP and not instructing the RCMP. So, where the federal government proposes to declare a POEC, a POE, and introduce law enforcement measures, it should, circumstances permitting, obtain through direct consultation or through appropriate intermediaries, such as the RCMP commissioner. Oh, you should listen to Brenda Lucki when she's cowering in a corner like a little mouse. That's why you hired her. So you could tell her what to do. Just like you tried with Jody Wilson-Raybold and many others there. Do what we say, get the hell out. That's not the way government's supposed to run. I'm sorry, and that's why there's big problems in this country. The views of those law enforcement agencies likely to be primarily affected by these proposed decisions. Well, no shit. So like I said, consult the police, but don't instruct them. 26. The perspectives of affected law enforcement agencies should be summarized in writing. Bam. Should always be in writing. Not, oh, just tell me so that I could say, well, I don't recall. No. That's not the way it works. The next one of relevance, 31, because all the rest is talking about things that the government doesn't really care about, like concerns related to privacy and government intrusiveness. Having the question of whether a department or agency of government should have the authority and responsibility to monitor and report on information contained in social media for appropriate purposes and with appropriate safeguards. Well, let's make some more laws, because we can't not stick our nose in everywhere. And here's a good one. The federal government should initiate a review to ensure that the federal government agencies with the responsibility for the collection or analysis of security intelligence are fully coordinated amongst themselves. The overall goals to be achieved are to minimize duplication, promote integration, and effective and time sharing at the federal level. Instead of texting your secret buddy on the side and having everyone find out that, oh, we have to have the secret conversation over here so that this guy over here doesn't hear what's going on, so we can keep this crap going. Everybody should be talking. Well, that's a great recommendation, especially on day one when they showed up. That would have been great. And what did I say? 31. The incorporation by reference into the Emergencies Act of the definitions of threats to the security of Canada from the CSIS Act should be removed. Now that is very interesting. So the Warrant Measures Act was back there, and like I said, basically 3 reasons to call it, none of which applied here. It was changed. In fact, it was changed in 1987 to bring it back from the 1970 FLQ crisis, because what they did then was raid houses of innocent people. So you can't be doing that. So they tried to rein it back, so government couldn't use it, and a Trudeau couldn't use it to his liking. Just watch me, as he says. And the next very good one is 38. Now this is, I believe, where it gets into the direction of the commissioner. The Emergencies Act should be amended to provide greater direction to the Commissioner of Inquiry, established in consequence of the declaration of the public order emergency, and at a minimum, direct it to examine and assess the basis for the declaration and the measures adopted. So, there's basically no mandate. There's no direction to examine anybody. There's no basis for, there's no assessment for a basis of declaration. There's no measures adopted. Let's put that in there, please, because he didn't know what his job was. 39, the prospective commissioner, or next commissioner, which, like I said, probably won't be one, pursuant to the act, should be consulted as to the substance of the terms of reference for the inquiry. Why are we doing this? There has to be something in writing. The Emergencies Act should be amended to require that at the time a commission of inquiry into the declaration of a public order emergency is established, the government deliver to the commission a comprehensive statement setting out the factual and legal basis for the declaration and measures adopted, including the view of the Minister of Justice of Canada as to whether the decision to proclaim an emergency was consistent with the purposes and provisions of the Emergencies Act. So don't put the Prime Minister in charge, put the Minister of Justice in charge, because basically he's a cop. Like I said in the last video, the cops don't want to do their job. So he wants to add on to the cops doing a job. Think these people are going to do it? I doubt it, but it gets better here on down the road. The Emergencies Act to impose upon the government the obligation to create and maintain a thorough written record of the process leading to decision. Well, then it would have never got called. That obligation should apply to both elected officials and their exempt staff and public servants. So everybody should have written records the moment that thing is even thought about being declared. The government should commence the work of collecting and organizing its documents and information as soon as the decision is made. Such records should be produced to the Commission at the outset of its work or as soon thereafter as feasible. 43. The government that has declared a public order emergency should be bound to produce to the resulting Commission of Inquiry all of the inputs to Cabinet and to ministers on the issue. Inputs to Cabinet should be understood as encompassing all information, advice, and recommendations provided to Cabinet committees, or individual ministers. Well, then you can't control the message now, can you? That's a bit of a problem. So all these things are not here, and he wants them to be here. So, the guy's trying to do a good job, I guess. There's other problems other places, but this is actually not bad. Should a future Commission of Inquiry create a working group to work through challenges to claims of national security and related privileges, the government should actively engage in the working group with a view to resolving issues quickly, basically. So, work with the Commission, write everything down, tell everyone facts. Yeah, right. Come on. 46. The Emergencies Act should be amended to allow the commissioner appointed to the inquiry to appoint an individual who have jurisdiction to resolve any claim of privilege that would normally be within the jurisdiction of a superior court judge, because He is one. In accordance with such expedited procedures as adopted by the adjudicator. Now, the fact that we know if he picked a soft judge, okay, but at least he picked a judge and not some clown off the street. Which, I mean, that would just be digging his own grave right there. I'll tell you that for sure. The Emergencies Act should be amended to give the commissioner the power to order a person to produce any information, document, or thing under the person's power or control. So, as per usual, there was no rules, and the government was allowed to black out entire pages, show up at the last second, sandbag the commission, and soon you're going to find out he didn't have enough time. It's 2,000 pages here. And he did it in 1, 2, 3, 4 months. I mean, that's 500 pages a month. That's I mean, it is bloated, but in legal speak, it has to be bloated. 49. The Emergencies Act should be amended subject to any constitutional constraints to clarify that the federal parliamentarian may not claim parliamentary privilege to refuse to testify before a commission in a public order emergency. See? He's putting good things in there. 50. The act should be amended such that the 360 days within which an inquiry must complete its work should start to run on the day that the ordering council created the commission is made, not the day of calling the order, the day of calling in a council. The commissioner heading a public order emergency inquiry should have the power to extend the time within which the commission's report must be produced by up to 6 months. So, what if it was worse? This is a peaceful protest turned into an emergency. What happens if it was way, way worse? Who knows? Recommendation 51. There's a boatload of recommendations here. Section 62 of the Emergencies Act should be amended to clarify that the mandate of the review committee is to oversee how the government is exercising its powers and performing its duties and functions while a declaration of an emergency is in effect. Parliamentary Review Committee. Who should that be made up of? And possibly how much stalling would be going on there. And it should be amended to provide that the Parliamentary Review Committee is to be struck as soon as possible and no later than 7 days after the proclamation of the emergency. Well, that's not waiting too long, 7 days, I guess. When it comes to the final areas of study, he asks governments to study social media and cryptocurrencies and how they affect Canadian society. This misinformation, disinformation on Canadian society with preserving freedom of expression and benefits of new technologies, while addressing there is serious challenges that misinformation, disinformation, and other online harms present to individuals in Canadian society. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Words on a paper on the internet do not and cause harm to people unless they read it. Put the damn thing down. And besides, we already have laws. In fact, far too many laws already with hate speech. And cryptocurrencies, this is none of their business. They just want to control everything. The final recommendation here is 55. I'm going to go over. And it's one that he wants. Within 12 months following the tabling of a commission's report, so a year from last week or so, the government should issue a public response. Identifying which recommendations it accepts and which one it rejects. For the recommendations the government accepts, it should provide a detailed timeline for their implementation. For the recommendations the government rejects, it should provide a detailed explanation of its refusal to implement them. I guess they wouldn't do it. The reason why would be fascist. And that's part of the problem. This entire recommendation and 2,000 pages of blah, blah, blah. The government's response is the only key in all of it. Should be referred to an implementation committee, the mandate and composition of which are to be determined by Parliament. Now, that's how the public can have a say here by getting on police boards and parliamentary review commissions. Now, it's not easy, but that's a way to have oversight by this, not saying that our government's going to do anything anyway. And also, the cost of all these police measures, because there's 40 or so of them, is going to be a lot of money for the taxpayers. And the costs are going to go up, and they're going to go up a lot. But I'm afraid that they're not going to do them. The only thing they like doing is beating people. And the donut counter lady who quit took the fall for all of them. And it's very sad. That's video number 3. Any suggestions? Get into any other topics, recommendations? Now, the fact that this entire commission was a waste of time, probably because the government isn't going to do anything. And that's what it's probably going to happen. They're just going to ignore the whole darn thing. And we'll get nothing done even after these recommendations. And that's just about where our government is right now. I'm going to read the rest of parts of this review. I'm not sure I'll do a video on it again unless something comes up. Now, I did want to mention the Yukon gentleman. I can't remember his name on Twitter. Put out a very, very good response to all of this. And somebody else did too. Damn. Oh, Viva Frey, yeah, that, gee whiz, did he ever rip into Trudeau? That was great. Look up that video from the other day. That was fantastic.
Canadians have been stressed, faced real financial challenges, and lost loved ones.
No, we have not been stressed and faced real financial challenge. You have stressed us. You have subjected us to financial challenges, and you and your provincial counterparts prevented us from being with loved ones while they died. Nothing can be more inhumane than that. So, no, it didn't just happen, Trudeau. You did it. And then when people protested about what you did to them, you didn't listen to them. You didn't talk to them. You didn't meet with them. You didn't bring in the military. You just brought in your goon squad to beat the ever-loving piss out of them. And you just got away with it.
Many people came to Ottawa because they were hurting and wanted to be heard.
Yeah, and you know what? You hurt them more and you didn't listen to them.
In our country, everyone has the right to protest peacefully. That's a fundamental right that government will always defend.
Until it decides it no longer wants to defend it. Until it decides that violence is microaggressions. Violence is the perception of violence. Until it decides that occupying a street, parking cars is no longer peaceful. Then they will come in and beat the shit out of you.
Take care, people. See you in the next one.